Welcome back to Open Line. I'm Chris Davis sitting in for Rory Johnston tonight on Open Line. Our guest, Jason McGowan from MTSU. He is leading up this Middle Tennessee African American Oral History Project and has so graciously given up some time to speak with us tonight. Jason, I imagine when you get people opening up and sharing their stories, can some of these conversations last for hours?
They definitely can, if allowed to go that way. That's part of why I'm there as well, to keep to direct it, to make sure that we keep within the time frame, because I have so many people to get to. I could sit and listen to people for hours. That's part of the joy of this project. I get to listen and learn and take in. But I do have to remember, even myself, that this is a project. There is a deadline. We have to get these things done. And so although I'm not going to slight anybody, I will direct and keep back on track. But once again, those tangents are where you find the gold.
And that's true for interviewing people too. I have definitely found that to be true. Somebody may just give you an anecdote that, you know, maybe they feel isn't super important to mention, and you can really hone in and get some really good stuff there. Jason, I'm curious, what would you view as a success for this project? Do you have a number of interviews in mind? Do you have a, scale or, geographic? What in your mind would make this project a full and complete success?
Well, number one, more time. Okay, I have a year to do this, and within this year, I have no doubt that I will have quite a great big number of interviews, going up into the possibly 100 is a good round number to get. But in order for this to be as successful as I would like it to be, of course, more time. This is a project that can go from, all 3 stars on the flag. That would be the ultimate goal there, to get all this Tennessee history down in the oral tradition, in this oral history project. That would be the ultimate goal. But working with what I have, I'm not going to turn anybody away. We're going to work it out as best we can with the time frame that we have. But the ultimate goal would take more time, because like I say, it would go from West Tennessee to East Tennessee. That would be the best thing.
And definitely a lot of stories to be told. I want to bring in Sam to the conversation. Sam, go ahead. You're on Open Line.
Oh, yes, sir. How are you all?
Doing well.
Doing well. Thank you.
I like your guests and you too tonight. That's an important subject y'all got on about history. And I'm a 83-year-old, 85-year-old veteran, Air Force veteran. I was born in this area, and my people are from Murfreesboro, but I was raised in Nashville.
Yes, sir, Sam, and thank you for your service, by the way. Does it? I'll turn the question back to you, Sam. Does it make you happy to know that a project like this exists?
It's very important, especially for today's youth. I try to talk to a lot of young people. Most of my family is professional people. And, of course, after I got out of the military, went to a small business school. But I try to be productive behind what I've learned. And I remember when he was talking about Jefferson Street having all the business and projects that you could go down through and didn't have to go anywhere to get service. And I remember when the interstate came, it even blocked the street off going to the hospital, Meharry Hospital. And it just destroyed the whole industry there. So I like what he's doing, and I would like to stay in touch with him.
Yes, sir. And Sam, we appreciate the call. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Jason.
I would definitely love that, Mr. Sam, to be able to speak with you either in person or through Zoom at a central location or something of that nature. You seem like you have a powerful experience to tell, and I think it should be shared. Thank you very much for your service. I just don't know what to say. I know that those probably were trying times for you. I know there were some happy times in there too, and I want to know about all of that. So thank you very much for your call, and I hope there's a way that I can get in contact with you.
And that teases up for a good question. While I have Sam on the line and our audience is listening, is there a way to get in touch with you if you know somebody or want to connect with somebody like Sam to be able to be a part of this project?
Yes, I mean, the best way, of course, if you want to contact me is through email at jason.mcgowan@mtsu.edu. It might be showing there on your screen. I'll spell it out, JASON.MCGOWAN@mtsu.edu. Or you can call me at 615-898-2030. Please, if I'm not available, please leave a message with your information and I will contact you back.
Well, Sam, I hope you're able to get connected with Jason because, like everybody's been saying, it sounds like you all have a great story that needs to be shared.
Well, I thank you for listening, and I got his name, and I've got a few connections. I'll try to get in touch with him.
Perfect. Sam, we appreciate the call. And once again, thank you for your service. We really appreciate it. And I'm so glad that Sam called in because I think that also gave us a little bit of a glimpse of maybe what it's like being behind the scenes as you chat with some of these individuals, Jason.
It is. A lot of times the pre-interview, I wish I record because that's where a lot of things come out. But of course, I don't do that because that's the getting to know you session. But a lot of things come out in those pre-interviews. But that's where I'm taking notes. I'm listening. I'm preparing them for the interview because once the interview begins, I won't be the one doing all the talking. I may ask follow-up questions and things of that nature. And one thing that's important to understand about oral histories is that when the interviews are going on, the interviewer, me, I don't have, I guess you would call it, a lot of verbal interaction unless it's a follow-up question. I avoid the hums and the go-aheads and the interruption, and even if it's a funny story, I try not to laugh because I don't want anything to interrupt their audio because the stories are so important. And so I do that in the pre-interview. I let them know that the banter that we're having during this time won't be the same banter once we're recording because your story is so important, it shouldn't be interrupted. Now, in person or through Zoom and things, you'll still see my facial expressions. I'm engaged non-verbally, but I don't want anything to interrupt their train of thought. The reason I bring that up is because, body language and verbal cues are a big part of connection and sometimes with interviewing. And you don't want someone to think that you're not interested in their story because of lack of verbal interaction. And so pre-interviews are important to make sure that that's an understood trait of this particular project too.
Absolutely, yeah, and we do a lot of the same practices when we're interviewing somebody for TV, so I can relate to that quite a bit. I'm curious if you could give us some examples of just really good examples of good conversations that you've had. Do you have? I would say the same thing about different stories I've done. I imagine you couldn't say you have a favorite, but do you have a few just examples of conversations you've had that kind of can illustrate what this project is all about?
Well, if I could possibly share a screen or something, I probably could show you a few of. Let you listen to something.
We can certainly give it a try if it'll work.
Well, I don't want to mess up anything, but I'll just tell you. There was one story from a lady who talked about some of the fear growing up in the community because of a lynching that happened. This was in Rutherford County as well, and so they had to watch where they go, watch where they went, and just be careful of certain things and how you went about your daily activities in the community. I had another story. I I also talk about current events, and this is a little tangent here as well. I was doing an interview with a lady who was a teacher at Holloway High School, the all-black school, and we were talking about the January 6th insurrection. And her comments for that were just, dumbfounding for me as well, because she was talking about how even during that time in school, we were trying to be good citizens and, saying the pledge every day and doing the things that they were taught to do in order to be considered good Americans. And then you have this insurrection occurring. She said that her students from back then would have just been appalled because of the things that she was teaching. She taught a lot of social studies. And from the things that they were learning, and even up until now, how the disparity of how the government treats certain people are a lot of the things that I found that haven't changed. And although you asked for something surprising, blow my mind, that really doesn't blow my mind. But what blows my mind is that it's still occurring.
Absolutely. I imagine too, I just, struck thinking about it, actually being able to hear these stories from the voice, that experienced them, hearing those in someone's own words, that has to be a powerful part of this project too.
Yes, it is. And like I say, sometimes it may not be their words or their stories that they're telling, but still the emotion that they're feeling coming from a family member's emotions or feelings is legitimate. Just because you didn't experience what your grandfather experienced doesn't mean that you're not experiencing some of the same hate in a different way, or the same love within the community. Because there was a lot, and there still is a lot of love within the Black community amongst hate. And that says something about the strength of Black Americans in the midst of a place where white is considered the default. It's the baseline. And, we're still thriving. Even today, it's still considered the baseline, and we're still thriving. We're continuously having to prove, for whatever reason, that, we're Americans. And I think with these stories, they'll see that a lot of the same things happen across communities. Everybody has to eat. A lot of people went to church. We'll start to see that we share a lot of the same things more than we differentiate.
Absolutely. Now, I think I heard you correctly earlier. Did you say that this initial, starting at least this oral history project, you have a year to kind of compile all this together?
Correct. I have a year. The grant is for a year, and so I'm working on this thing for until January, February, right in there. And so I think that goes to show, one, not only the urgency for the project, but there is an urgency for the project. Because of the year, we need to get these things in now. And because of the climate of our country, there is an urgency to get these things in now.
Absolutely. So, for one, I'm curious, obviously, you have to go with what the grant is, but if you're able to extend that amount of time, is that a hope for you? I could see this gaining some popularity as people like Sam hear about this, or people watching tonight hear about this and want to get individuals in their lives involved.
Oh, this is always going to be something that I'm interested and involved in. Even after the grant, within my own community, I can still, collect interviews for ourselves and have them archived, at places like the Bradley Academy or the Historical Society and things of that nature. So just because a grant may not be funding it doesn't mean it's going to be less important to me.
Obviously, you've mentioned, Jason, that you're wanting to get the full and complete picture of history all across Tennessee. But of course, you are on the campus of Middle Tennessee State University. Have you been able to get some stories from individuals that were students at MTSU and could kind of shed some light on what it was like for an African American student in different parts of the history of campus?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I interviewed a gentleman who was part of MTSU's band when they were playing Dixie all the time. And so I got stories about how he refused to play. I got stories about Sylvester Brooks, who was a student at MTSU who wrote a article, I believe it was an editorial on the sidelines about why Dixie, I can't remember the name of the title, I wish I did, but he was talking about why we need to stop playing Dixie. I have some stories about MTSU about my aunt from her son, about her first day at MTSU and how someone said as soon as she walked in, oh, it just got dark in here. But then the MTSU person who was in charge of the orientation handled that and talked to that person afterwards and made sure that they knew that was not the attitude that was wanted. I'm getting a lot of good stuff, especially about MTSU and the band itself and how it was for just a Black person to be on that campus.
Absolutely, and I'm sure as you continue with this project, there'll be no shortage of stories and stories to come. We have to get in another commercial break, unfortunately, but we will have much more with Jason on the other side of this break. You're watching Open Line.